You are now locked in and listening to the Transform You Live show with your host, Dr. Marcus Hart. This is the only place where real transformation can happen in your life. Be sure to check us out every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time and on Saturdays at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. Or check your local listings by visiting transformubroadcast.com. That's transform.broadcast.com. Are you searching for your purpose? Are you looking for your soulmate or that special someone in your life? Or have you found all of that but seem to be stuck and need some real transformation in your life? Then Dr. Marcus Hart, that's me. I can help. Be sure to visit my website at realmarcushart.com, where you'll find all the information you need to get you on your path. Always remember, spirituality doesn't always mean religious. I'm here to help. Do you have a message that needs to be heard? Do you have a product or service that can really help others make real transformation in their lives? Then why not advertise on the Transform You Live show, where we help others make real transformation in their lives? So let us help you make transformation in the way you advertise by advertising to over 23 different countries and across 25 different podcast directories. Just visit transformubroadcast.com. That's transform the letter U broadcast.com, or send an email directly to transformuliveshow@gmail.com. That's transform the letter U liveshow@gmail.com. You are tuned in to Transform You Live Media Broadcast Network. For more information, visit transformubroadcast.com. That's transform the letter U broadcast.com. The only place where real transformation happens. Enjoy the show. Hello, my people, my people, my people. This is your host, Dr. Marcus Hart, and I hope all of my transformers out there are doing fantastic. Thank you for joining us again for another special edition of the Transform You Live show. Today, I'm live in Madison, Wisconsin at the Madison Labor Temple, local 2304. I'm here for a very special event. But before I get into all of that, let's bring forth an interview I conducted with UK's very own Cal Davies. He's a coach and author. So stay tuned in. We're going to take a quick break and we'll bring you right back into the action. Hello, my Transformers, and welcome to the Transform You Live show with your host, Dr. Marcus Hart. And that's me, and we are here for another amazing show with another fabulous guest. And this guest is a special treat for all of us. He's coming all the way from the United Kingdom to provide us with some very interesting information and some stuff we can apply directly into our lives right away. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about Cal Davies. He's a coach, author, and trainer. He teaches people how to optimize their well-being, attain clarity of mind, and perform more effectively at work, home, and in life. Without further ado, let's give it up for Mr. Davies. Are you there, Cal?
I sure am. Thanks for having me on the show today.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely a pleasure, and we are very humbled to have someone of your esteem to join us. Now, with that being
very nice of you to say. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And the audience have heard me give a brief bio on you, but in your own words, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I sure can. I'm a psychologist by original trade. I started out my career working in consulting, doing things like executive coaching and management training, those sorts of things. Loved working with people, passionate about seeing kind of changes in people. I then went and did a lot of therapy training to kind of expand what I was doing, a little therapy practice. I then started working with a medical doctor that had a particular interest in chronic fatigue syndrome, post-viral fatigue, adrenal fatigue, fibromyalgia, because his girlfriend at the time had it. And as a medical doctor, he was deeply frustrated because there wasn't anything he could do. And he'd done some of the same therapy training that I'd done, and he began to try some of the, he'd adapted some of the processes and techniques and was beginning to use them with his patients, and those things was making some difference. So I started working with him, and we developed a therapy. We trained therapists in a variety of countries, including the US, and it was a kind of, I guess, quite an exciting time of seeing a difference being made to people's lives where medicine wasn't making a difference. And but what was kind of frustrating about it was that when you exist outside of academia, when you exist outside of mainstream medicine, it's very difficult to get research done. So we were never able to get our work kind of officially researched and never officially embraced within mainstream healthcare. My business partner went back to being a doctor because he kind of got a bit jaded with trying to get research done, and I've kind of kept the flag flying. I wrote a book about it called The Intelligent Body, which came out last year. There's a metaphysical or spiritual aspect to it. It's a kind of, even though initially we focused on working with people with chronic fatigue type conditions, the underpinning framework and principles are applicable really to everybody, because the essence of the work it's about unleashing you, kind of realigning with what I would call your true self, or the flow of consciousness that is who we are. And when we begin to do that, we get back in touch with our emotional truth. That renders a whole series of changes in the body, in the brain, and leads ultimately to kind of health and well-being. So that's the kind of nutshell version of me.
Awesome. Very, very much a lot of information right there. You have really just enlightened us to some things that, maybe most of us wasn't very sure of. And one thing that stuck out to me was you draw a connection between health and spirituality. And what's that connection exactly?
I think for me, and I guess it depends how deep in the rabbit hole you want me to go here. I believe that we're on the planet and probably beyond. We're going through something of a massive consciousness shift. I think that what we've witnessed certainly in the last 10 years and more, certainly in the last 10 years, is an accelerated rate of change. And I think this is manifesting itself as uncertainty. We're seeing financial breakdown. We're seeing cultures breaking down. We're seeing kind of all sorts of crazy things that seem to be happening. We're seeing unexpected things that are happening, and the status quo is shaking, and people feel uncertain. I think I've encountered lots of people that are kind of waking up spiritually, and I suppose I view illness, certainly the sort of illnesses, the energy disorders that I work with, as being part of that process of this colossal consciousness shift that we're going through. So I think that, part of our, in a very simple way, part of our journey on planet Earth is to have an experience of ourselves, and that experience is changing because we are literally changing as human beings. So I think that this is a period of accelerated evolutionary change. I think we are fundamentally changing, and I think that as we're doing that, and as there is this desire to have, from what I would call a true self, or you can call it your soul or your spirit, is seeking expression, seeking experience. It's getting blocked, and I think when it gets blocked in its expression through the individual, then systems break down in the body. This manifests itself essentially as stress in the body, and ultimately then results in potentially a whole host of symptoms. So that's kind of the connection. So in a very simple way, I see the essence of life about experiencing ourselves, and very often, because of a desire to get along, to fit in, to do the right thing in a changing society that is incredibly externally focused, and social media helps and facilitates our external focus, but it takes us away from us. So we end up being more of who we're not than who we are. And I think the bigger the gap between that what the world sees of us and who we really are, ultimately that leads to a breakdown in systems in the body. A lot of that can start in trauma in childhood. So we are, there's increasing interest, increasing research looking at the connections between what they would refer to as adverse childhood experiences or trauma that happens in childhood, and then experiences or illnesses and chronic illnesses that a person would have in later life. I think part of what happens is that in childhood, as a person goes through trauma, they learn to adapt, they learn to cope, and they end up burying their emotion, and they learn to bury aspects of themselves, and ultimately then this results in some form of chronic illness later in life. So that's the connection. So I hope that makes sense. Anyway.
Awesome. That's definitely brilliant. You really touched on a lot of key areas and things that I'm very intrigued of and really been trying to study. And one of those things you mentioned, in just what you were saying was the whole consciousness shift and how we all are experiencing it. But still, there's many who are, very keen to conventional practices, and they seem to trust those a lot more. But it seems that you have a totally different approach. You have a totally different understanding. And how different is your process from different, for the most traditional and conventional practices?
When you say conventional practice, do you mean conventional practices of therapy or medicine? What exactly do you mean there?
Definitely about therapy and medicine and healing period. Different ways of healing and those practices.
Okay, so I think in terms of what we're used to with healing in a conventional healthcare and medicine perspective, medicine has a focus on dealing with symptoms, and a lot of what we tend to want to do, we get almost indoctrinated into a mindset of if there's something wrong with us, we want medicine to fix it, because medicine is born out of the scientific materialistic paradigm, which views the body as a machine, and it's separated into its individual parts, and if something goes wrong, you go and see a specialist for arms or legs or shoulders, or whichever part of your body is not working. And whilst at some level, when the problem is acute, that's fine and that works. When problems become chronic, and we seem to have an epidemic of chronic health challenges now, the lack of a holistic view and a view that doesn't really look to identify cause, it's mainly working with symptoms, it sort of falls down. When it comes to therapy from a conventional sense, it tends to be cognitive in orientation, so still it sticks with a mind-body split. And it kind of works from this perspective of, well, if you can change thinking patterns, then you can sort of change your life, really. I'm not so much of a believer in that. Whilst I think, I said that thinking is very powerful. My work is about really identifying what I think is cause, but cause for me is, in many instances, in terms of problems and health challenges that people experience, is a blocking of what I would say is emotional truth. So that the emotions, intuitions that people have, that they learn from childhood to block, and they don't do that consciously. They do that in order to kind of get by, to survive, to fit in, to cope. So that, for me, ultimately, that's the sort of the cause. My work then, as I say, it's about facilitating a person's realignment with who they are, and who they are is the emotional, intuitive feedback they get if they're able to feel it. Because in many instances, when we learn to block our feeling feedback, we shut it down and then we tune out to it, and we're not aware that it's there. And especially if you're a man, this is the thing, isn't it? Because you can't have emotion and be a tough guy. So having emotion and being a man is very difficult. But what we're seeing is that men are struggling, aren't they? I think it's the same over in the US as it is in the UK. But I know in the UK, the biggest killer of men under 50 is suicide. And, men are suffering. It's interesting over here in the construction industry, over here now, they are, because health and safety is so good, there are more men that are dying through suicide than dying through workplace accidents in the construction industry. So, we're without doubt, we're kind of in crisis. And as I say, I think that there is, I think the role for men is changing, and that's all part of the shift that we're going through. And I think young men, older men are struggling and in crisis. And a lot of men that I talk to of all ages are looking for answers, really, and looking to find who they are. So it's to say my work is about trying to help men and women get to the essence of who they are. And it's the crucial thing is it's looking inside rather than looking outside. So there's this inside out kind of flavour to my work, which is, it's not about tools and techniques and matching yourself to something external. It's about finding you. And it's, my job is to help people find themselves, feel themselves, get into who they really are. And when they do that, they're able to flow. So thus the name of my work is energy flow coaching, because it's that flow of energy that is us, is what we need in order to experience health and peace of mind.
Definitely. I definitely love the nuggets you are dropping to us today and really helping us. And I can't agree more about the colossal idea that finding oneself is very important. At what point, or how have you in the past began to find yourself?
Sorry, you just broke up there. Can you repeat that question?
So the question was, being that it is very colossal for all of us to find, ourselves, at what point in your life did you find yourself, and what would you recommend other people in terms of how to find themselves?
It's a great question, actually. I think that for me, it's an ongoing process. I see myself as probably 2 steps ahead of the people that I work with. And one of the things I say is that I'm not looking to define myself. I believe that we are, that in our essence, I think we're a flow of consciousness. I think we're connected to all that is. But we exist on a kind of spectrum where there is this expanded version of us where we feel okay, we feel good, we feel love, we feel joy, we feel connected, and we know we are connected. And then there's on the other end of the spectrum, there's this limited part of us that feels isolated, feels scared, and sees ourselves as being, and sees everything we feel as being directly caused by everything outside of ourselves. Whereas in our expanded state, our truer connected state, we sense that how I feel arises and emerges in me and through me. So I don't seek to kind of define myself as such, and it's certainly not done through thought and thinking. And it's the same with my clients. I see it as a really an ongoing journey. But the closest I'm going to come is how I feel today and the things I feel about, and how, where I feel drawn, where I feel nudged. And what I allow myself to do is experience myself. So the thing I often say to my clients is, be curious about who you might be rather than trying to define who you are. I think that, again, because we're such a mind and mentally focused culture, there is this idea that we've got to mentalize absolutely everything. And I think a huge, whilst using our brain to analyze and be logical and rationalize is absolutely vital in some aspects of life, I think we need to we need to qualify it in certain circumstances. And I think rather than applying it carte blanche across the board, I think really what we need to be doing is allowing life to be simpler, allowing ourselves to experience the feeling aspect of ourselves, allow ourselves to reconnect with our physical body, our emotional selves, our spiritual selves. And whereas I think culturally it's very easy for us to switch off. I think many people unknowingly exist in a kind of trance-like state where they go through the same patterns day in, day out, and it's all based upon, I've got to get to work, I've got to do the chores, I've got to sort the kids, I've got to pay the bills, and it's a treadmill of life and I think a lot of people are on that treadmill where they don't feel a lot, they don't feel particularly happy, but they don't see a way out, so they tune out. And then we have people that kind of mentalize everything, where they overthink everything and they analyze. Everything is run through that channel of analysing. Really what we want is a third space, which is a space of open conscious awareness, where we allow ourselves to be. We're curious about who we are, we're curious about how we feel, and we allow ourselves to attune to how we feel. We know when we need to think, and we apply our rational thinking skills when we need to. So mine's been a long journey, really. I've had instances where I felt that, I've had little spiritual awakenings. But I guess back when I was much younger, I kind of believed that it seemed to be the idea that you'd have a spiritual awakening and that was it, you were awake then. Whereas my experience as being it's a little bit more of a Pandora's box, that once you start, you experience a series of awakenings or accelerations or developmental phases and especially now, because everything is changing. Life has seemed like it's speeding up. Life has seemed like it's chaos at times. So, and last year was a fantastic example where I genuinely, both personally and professionally, don't know anyone that had a good year last year. There were people dying, people losing jobs, relationship breakdown. Last year was unbelievable in terms of things things that went wrong. And everyone I knew was so glad to get rid of last year. So I think, and really, of course, when you can stand in the spiritual space, you can begin to see what's happening. You can begin to see that was a heavy year. There was a lot of stuff that was going on. And individually, for me, I need to look at what I can learn from that, where I move from that. What I don't want to be doing is getting bleak. And I think for those that don't have a spiritual outlook, that are genuinely just 3D and they see their existence as just on this planet, it becomes tricky when life is like this, and seems like there's a lot of chaos around and very little order. It's difficult. So stepping into that spiritual space is good, but is for me is the thing to do. But as I say, I see it as an ongoing journey, and it's one of uncovering oneself by being curious and by feeling, as I say, by getting into the body and feeling.
Definitely, I can't agree with you more. And once again, I just really truly appreciate just all the important aspects of spirituality and just how it ties in with like being a better professional and just being a better person who defines their identity. Not just once, but constantly looking to transform. With that said, you also have a book out. Can you tell us a little bit about your book and how, if we were to pick it up, how it may help transform our lives?
Yeah, the book is called The Intelligent Body. It has a little bit more of a focus of reversing chronic fatigue and pain symptoms, but it's generally the principles that I talk about. So to a large extent, I guess it's a self-help book, but it talks about, it gives what I would say is a fresh perspective on the nature of what stress is and how stress affects the body. And, it's looking at this mind-body perspective. So stress is not a mental thing. Stress is a full body, it's a set of measurable, objective biochemical events that takes place in the body, and the body can be, triggered into the stress response in exactly the same way, regardless of whether you have a physical injury or an illness or some emotional trauma. So it goes into detail about the nature of stress, what emotion is. Again, emotion is not just a mental concept, it's something that is a complex physiological process that affects all of the body and all of the brain. So it talks about stress, emotion. It goes into who you are. It's not profoundly spiritual, because I wanted the book to be amenable and accessible to, those that want to improve their life, want to improve their health, but maybe, they're new to spiritual ideas. So I talk a little bit about who we are and, how this impacts upon our health. And then it talks through ideas about what you can do to really begin to, I guess, take charge of your well-being by having a fresh look at who you are, beginning to feel, learning to feel again, which I know sounds kind of simple, but in practice, it's actually quite hard, and it's just because of this idea that many, certainly all the people that I work with, they're very good at being versions of themselves, which is not really who they are, and unlearning unconscious patterns is not necessarily an easy thing to do. So I identify what all those patterns are in the book, and then I give people.
I was quite satisfied with my civilian care medicine. But at the beginning of the year, I lost my that insurance. And now,
Hello, my Transformers.
right away,
I hope you enjoyed that interview. We are going to switch back gears live here in Madison, Wisconsin, where we are at the Madison Labor Temple, and we are at local 2304 discussing VA healthcare. Recently, Congress has done it again, and they are planning to hopefully not happen, I hope it don't happen, to privatize VA healthcare. And we want to push back against that, and that's why there's a lot of celebrities in the building here today, a lot of influencers, a lot of big voices, a lot of small voices, and we are discussing what we can do to help push back against this very crucial issue. We do not want this to turn into a crisis. This is a very important issue that's dear to my heart. So I hope you listen entirely to what's going on as the discussion proceeds. I myself will be getting up and doing a talk myself. I will share my story about. Good evening. My name is Marcus Hart of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I served in Operation Iraqi Freedom 07 through 08. And during my deployment, I was injured. I did something very stupid. I took Humvee tires and tried to stack them as high as I could, and one came back on me and almost decapitated my head. And when I returned back home, I thought I was going to be able to live a normal life as a young adult should, and that wasn't the case. I wasn't able to work regularly again. I found myself very angry at the world. I wasn't making the right type of relationships. I was making a lot of unhealthy relationships and making a lot of unhealthy choices. And I even fell into a deep state of depression and started gambling away all my money. But the VA was right there for me, and I didn't know it. But I found out very quickly when I became very ill. I had a 108.9 degree temperature, and they did not know how I was living. But they worked aggressively to get me back well. They kept me in the hospital, and they brought in doctors from everywhere, from all VAs, and collaborated to try to figure out what was wrong. Still to this day, they didn't figure out what was wrong, but there was something that happened in that hospital. There was a nurse who asked, could she pray for me? And I said, what? Are we in a hospital? And she prayed for me. And the very next day, I was well. It was like nothing had ever happened. So that's just a prime example of how customized care can work for people. How when they take the time to really care about the veteran, rather they've been a veteran themselves or they had a family member that was a veteran, or they just been working around veterans so long. That's the type of care I've been receiving at the VA hospital. And I'm very sad that my primary provider is going to be retiring in July. So I got to ask him, did he know something I did not know? And so, and we got to save our VA. It is a lot of people in my generation who's not utilizing it, and and they should be. They're really missing out, and so we got to do what we can to really save this. Okay.
My name is Tom Gonzalez. I'm here on the back. I want to question is there any possible idea what it might cost for a person if there was no VA? We all get the same treatment from private physician. What would be a cost for a person to gain the same kind of care that we have now? Do you have any idea or anybody?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking that question. So, they're all saying it could be done more efficiently in a business model in the VA and outside the VA. Well, American healthcare is one of the least efficient systems in America.
My experience in the VA healthcare and how it has helped me. So stay locked, stay tuned in. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back where we will report and allow you to just take a quick listen on what's going on.
VA, it's very hard to figure out.
You just listened to the Transform You Live show on the Transform You Live Media Broadcast Network. For more information, visit transformubroadcast.com. That's transform the letter U broadcast.com. Be sure to join us again on Saturday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time and next week, Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, which is our new time. I hope you enjoyed the show. Many blessings, peace, and lots of love. See you again soon.
The negotiations are often 500 to 750% over Medicare. You can find out how much something costs in the VA compared to Medicare, but you can't find out really how much it costs in the private sector. That's why those of us who are covered by private sector healthcare can't shop around. They don't, Dolores, did you know how much, Dolores is an OBGYN, and you probably didn't know how much one of your patients was paying for a procedure yourself, right? You have no idea. You have no idea, she says. The doctor herself or himself has no idea what the charge is going to be. They may know what they get paid, but they don't know, what the charge is. It was estimated for the Commission on Care that if 60% of veterans were taken care of in the private sector because it's so expensive, it would cost $450 billion a year. Now the VA budget is 70. So private sector care would be way more expensive.
I'd like to respond also, if I may. Sorry, Lars. Yours is okay, buddy. I'd like to respond to that too, Tom. This fellow that I mentioned is so angry at the military and the system and everything that he won't contact the VA. He's just out of the hospital. He had the flu. He wasn't in the hospital very long, and he's trying to figure out where he can get the $4,000 to pay his bill. Or what would have been free if he could only get himself to contact the VA. $4,000.
Yes, my name is Lars Pitt, and I'm a veteran of Vietnam and the Marine Corps. And I just want to know from Will, where do we sign up for this bonus march to protect the VA?
I love it.
Is there something afoot that we should know about, or is it just talk now, or is there really something afoot to get this moving?
We're going to do anything to get big.
There's nothing happening now. I just thought about it. I mention it because we have some people here that have contacts that might be able to get the ball rolling.
What you got next Monday, Will? I'm open on Monday.
So I don't know. Maybe we'll ask some of the people here if they'll get it rolling.
So, program does when they go home, right? Because a bonus march is hard to organize, but it's not hard to call your conference person, and it's not hard to sign up for, the FFEHC website, and it's not hard to put a sticker on your car, and it's not hard to start talking to your fellow veterans. You go to the VA. We need for you guys in the VA to take these with you, right? And to start initiating conversations in the waiting room with your fellow veterans. We need you to be an activist, right? We need you to do videos, because the Koch brothers are winning because they have money to get out this negative narrative. We need for you to go to the newspapers and ask them why they're not covering the good things in the Madison VA and the Milwaukee VA, right? We need you to write to CNN. I mean, I'm all for bonus marches, but I want you to do things tomorrow and next week, right? And these are things that people can do, and they will have an impact.
I agree with much of what you just said, but I don't have that much faith in politicians. I'm telling you right now, politicians listened to us before when millions of people marched all over the world to try to stop this country from invading Iraq without a purpose. So what did they do? They went and voted for the crap. So no, I feel that it's hard work to organize, but it can be done. If kids in Florida can organize and get a movement going that's at least making politicians turn their eye to the problem, there's no way in the hell we should not be able to do it. So I'm not one to sit back and hope that I can persuade some corporate whore in Congress to take up the issues that we're concerned with and the issues that will solve the problems that we have. No, long as they're in the pockets of the Koch brothers and others, they will always work for the people that funded their biscuit.
Just one more thing, could I? Last year, Buzz Davis, and I was with Will and a few other of you people, we were out in front of the Veterans Hospital raising issues to this very thing. And that's why I'm asking if there's anything afoot. I mean, from the union side.
You are tuned in to Transform You Live Media Broadcast Network. For more information, visit transformubroadcast.com. That's transform the letter U, broadcast.com. The only place where real transformation happens. Enjoy the show. Hello, my people, my people.
Seen some commercials on the VA in Toma with Tammy Baldwin in support of what she did in Toma by vets.org, and that was a caption underneath the commercial. So I guess my question is, it seems to me like we should support them, and what you think about the vets organization. But those commercials were against some group. Against Tammy Baldwin. Against Tammy Baldwin. Like this commercial was a counter commercial to their commercial.
That was probably Tammy. Best for America.
I think it was.
Let's vote for Tammy.
Yeah, but it was countering an anti-Tammy.
It's countering the vote vets commercial is countering another commercial that well, it's bad for Tammy. I mean, it sounds really bad. So, but it was about the Toma VA.
Well, Vote Vets is a group that actually works closely with AFGE often, and Vote Vets is, done a lot of good stuff. Will Fisher is the guy I borrowed the list, thing from, and they're pretty well funded, and they're doing good things. My understanding is that Tammy Baldwin has been not so hot on some of these issues, and
Pretty supportive of me.
what?
She's been very supportive of me.
Tammy is very supportive of veterans, but she's also doing a lot of choice stuff.
Yeah, that's what I.
And that's an issue. She's not separating, she's buying into that.
So, Will, how about having a march on Tammy Baldwin's office?
We're going to, we have one more question, and then we have to call it a night, so I appreciate everyone's patience. Go ahead. I was just wondering which bills those were, which bill numbers, because that would really help if, to organize the development and testify against those bills. I currently work in the Capitol, and being a veteran myself, that would really help if we could get a group to organize and actually testify against these so we could get voices in there. Okay. To answer that, we have HR 4242 and Senate Bill 2193 that we're not seeing both Congress and Senate Bill 1.
Okay, Senate Bill 2193.
So, thank you. So I want to say thank you. We do have representatives from Senator Baldwin's office and Mark McCann's office. We have representatives from Senator Urkenbach, and we just want to say thank you for coming. And if you wanted to say something, the floor is open.
I don't speak folks longer. I will stay here as long as folks want to talk to me. I work in the Senator's Madison office and throughout the Southwestern part of the state on 30 half. If you have folks in other parts of the state, I would love to connect with staff. I'm not trying to stay with them. That's why we want to have a statewide open and lane of communication with them.
Do you have a message that needs to be heard? Do you have a product or service that can really help others make real transformation in their lives? Then why not advertise on the Transform You Live show, where we help others make real transformation in their lives? So let us help you make transformation in the way you advertise by advertising to over 23 different countries and across 25 different podcast directories. Just visit transformubroadcast.com. That's transform the letter U broadcast.com, or send an email directly to transformuliveshow@gmail.com. That's transform the letter U liveshow@gmail.com. You just listened to the Transform You Live show on the Transform You Live Media Broadcast Network. For more information, visit transformubroadcast.com. That's transform the letter U broadcast.com. Be sure to join us again on Saturday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time and next week, Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, which is our new time. I hope you enjoyed the show. Many blessings, peace, and lots of love. See you again soon.